Okay, this is Nothing Conversations, and I am with Vivian Novak. Hi, Vivian.
Hi, thank
Yes,
you for having me.
yeah, it's a pleasure because I've been with Vivian. She is one of my guides in Liberation Unleashed, and she has helped me a lot with when it comes to seeing the obvious. Maybe we can start with your story, how it unfolded for you, because I saw your website and I think it's nice for the listeners to know how it happened for you.
Yeah. So I had a difficult childhood. So as a result, I was looking for ways to stop suffering. So I was in lots of self-help books. I even became a psychologist myself in the hope that maybe therapy would help me. And of course, I had my own therapies for almost 10 years, which helped, but it wasn't enough. So I read a lot, and I don't know exactly when, in my 20s, I think, I came about with Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. I read it several times, and probably during at that time when I was reading his book, I was in a shopping center, and that was my first glimpse. It's happened there that suddenly I realized that I've spent my whole life in dreaming, looking at my thoughts, nothing else, and not seeing the reality, what is here right now. So that was the first time when it was a stark contrast of suddenly saying that, oh my God, there are colors here, sounds, there's a whole life here, and I'm missing all of it, because I'm just watching those internal movies and internal conversations and missing reality, what is here now. So that was very surprising, and that was just the beginning. So for a long time, I didn't really pursue this, but then it came back here and then. So I went off and on on the trail for seeking. But my ultimate goal was to totally end any kind of suffering. Because of my childhood, I was constantly afraid. I never felt safe. And I was always looking for love, believing that something is wrong with me. So I need to look outside and I need to get love from others, as if I used to think the analogy that as if I were an empty glass, which would needed to be filled with love, but the bottom of the glass was empty. Not empty, sorry, whole. There was a hole on the bottom of the glass, and no matter how much love or attention I got from others, that was constantly seeking out from that hole at the bottom. So that cup could never be filled. Mm-hmm. So this is how I perceive my life. And probably in 2014, at the beginning of it, I don't know, I deeply realized somehow that no one will ever be able to fill that cup for me. That the problem is not outside. It's no one will be ever able to give me what I'm longing for. That I have to do something here, something inside. So then I started reading the A Course of Miracles, and I started doing the daily exercises, which was really mind-blowing and shocking, because sentences like, I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. And I just repeated and repeated, and And how could that be? But something, it opened up something that somehow thoughts are not what they seem to be. Something is fishy around thoughts. Something is not okay. So I really went deep into the Course in Miracles, and I had lots of resistance because of the religious tone of it, but somehow I get over it. And about 3 months doing that, I ended up searching on the internet with all sorts of spiritual teachers. And I started watching at the time lots of Tony Parsons videos. And one day I was watching him, and he talked about there being no doer. Life is just happening, everything is just unfolding. And then I stopped the video, went to the bathroom, and then suddenly I looked and I simply couldn't find anything which was moving the body, making decisions. I don't know exactly what happens because I don't really remember the looking part of it. What I remember that I just leaned back to the wall and I stood there in an utter shock, surprise. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, there's nothing here. There's no doer. This body is just moving, and it was the thing I remember is this utter shock, but in a good way, a huge surprise. And then, of course, I still had to look because just having one glimpse is usually, of course, not enough. So later on, at one morning, I woke up and I saw the sunlight coming through the windows, and I was searching for this I, really, where is this I? And I just repeated to myself the word I, and in my native language too. And I simply couldn't find it anywhere else than just the word, just the thought, just the word I itself. So that was a saying that there's nothing else to it. There's nothing else to it. And this wasn't as shocking as saying that there is no doership, but it still was a significant moment.
Wow. It's an inspiring story because I think I can relate with 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 what you said even at the very beginning, because I also had a kind of similar journey, so to speak. Like, it started with that feeling, that empty glass, and then there's a hole because I felt so unworthy. And then I was diagnosed with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And then there's a lot of seeking for answers with religion, with science, psychology. Yes, because I've been talking to therapists for years and I've been in rehab for 6 years because it's like, and after rehab it's still a constant search for self-help. And that's why I'm really inspired when you're talking about this because I think for some listener it might spark hope, because I think it like suffering is not in vain. It's life's expression, and one day it will make sense. Something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
yes.
Go ahead.
But I would give the false impression that suddenly suffering stopped. No, it seems to be. So after this, the desire for others to fill up this glass is just stopped. It just stopped because it was utterly clear that either I have it or I don't. It's not fillable. It's not something coming from outside. It should be here. So that the desire, so how I related to my husband or my friends has changed dramatically. But I wouldn't say that suffering totally stopped. And this is what I'm seeing when I'm guiding others, that many people comes with the expectation of wanting to separate the stuff once and for all. And unfortunately, this is not what the case, especially for those who have deeper traumas or unresolved emotional wounds. Because after this, there was a period when I felt quite relaxed and okay. And I hope that this now, then that it's over. But no, it wasn't over. About a year, in a year, all that patterns that developed in my childhood, that I never felt safe anywhere, came back with a force. So I had to look at that. But looking after, so after someone already realized and seen that there is no individual here, then usually it's easier to look at those traumas because you can look at it with a different eyes. And I worked many years to undo, first even just to feel, first even just to acknowledge what happened in my past, not to run away from the unpleasant sensations, to really feel them, to be with them, but then to inquire into the beliefs that stems from them, and I still continue carrying around with me, whether those beliefs are actually true. And so it can be looked at, this kind of emotional inquiry can go on many different levels. It can be looked at on the personal level. It can be looked at the level of the beliefs. It can be looked at where is the person that is seemingly suffering or used to suffer because of this? Where is the one having this memory right now? Is this actually a memory? What is this memory? Where is the time? Am I looking actually the past now? So when our mental images comes up, am I actually looking at the past? And no. So there's lots that can be discovered and looked at after the initial saying that there is no separate entity.
Yeah, it's nice that you pointed that out because the expectation can set up the a lot of disappointment. You were guiding me, and you know that I'm very stubborn, right? I was telling. Well, I think one of my question is why is it, because this is from personal experience. Remember when I was so fighting tooth and nail to prove that there's a me, that there's a doer, but until you're on a dead end, until it comes to a point where it just shows up that there's really is no individual. But why is it such a strong, I don't know what to call it, hypnotic, maybe hypnosis, or such a strong illusion to, because the me is such a, I don't know, what do you call it? It's such a strong hold to this,
Yeah.
to the reality. I don't know, maybe why do you think it's hard to break away from it?
We can look at it from different angles. One of could be that this me is my identity. This is what I believe myself to be. So seeing or discovering that what I believe myself to be in my whole life, even if it's an unpleasant self, it is something that I'm not really happy to be with or at, yet it is me. At least this is what's believed, that it is me. So it's like a death. Many people actually, many clients I guide actually have a fear of death, as if this me were dying, but actually this me cannot die, since it's nothing else but a thinking, feeling, and behaving pattern. But it's when someone is really invested in this mental story of me having my life, it seems so real that it actually can be interpreted and felt as if I were dying. So there is a clinging onto this identity. That is one thing. And the another thing is that these mind-made mental movies are so perfect. I mean, they are so convincing that they are actually real. So if we look at from the perspective of neuroscience, the mind or the brain cannot distinguish between an imagination and reality. So if I really deeply imagine something, that is my reality. And we could give one definition for this waking up is to wake up from this continuous stream of mind movies and seeing that this is not real, this is not what is here now. This mentally constructed virtual reality is not what is this tangible, actual, here now experience. And yet we spend our lives focusing our attention so onto this movie that we hardly ever notice our lives. So one way to wake up is to be conscious that these are just thoughts occurring. But the content, what these thoughts about, are not actual reality. They are not here now. And yet I'm reacting emotionally as if they were it here now and actually happening. But they are not. And this is creating the illusion of time. So when you really look at this mental narration that continuously on, is either about something what happened in the past, or anticipating the future, or some other place than here now. So it's either other than now, either the past or the future, or other place than here now. And this mentally constructed story creates the continuity of a self who is living through time and gathering experiences and having affected by it.
Oh yes. it's I was like you mentioned, like it's thought creating its own story. It's a stream, because when you asked me to do an experiment where you just sit down and you notice that thoughts come and go effortlessly without effort from an imaginary individual. Maybe the question I had struggled in the past was, who is the one believing the thought? Who is the one reacting to the emotion? And I was thinking, like, is life just gonna play out exactly, or do we really have a certain percentage of control over, are we really listen, yeah, something like that. That's the most I struggled with in the past.
Yeah, so let's look at separately. So first, let's look at if there is someone reacting to those mind movies. So for that to be true, there should be something here choosing to focus on their thought and then choosing to react to it. But do you have a feeling that you choose your emotional reactions, or they are just happen?
Yeah.
So how I see it, of course, this is just a story, so this is just one way to explain it. We could say that these thinking patterns just play themselves out of conditioning, triggered by certain circumstances that happens. And then if they touch upon on something that I have a belief attached to it or an identity to it, then the associated emotion comes after it. So a thought happens, then an emotional response, which is being associated to it because of believing that this is real and this is my identity and about me. Therefore, the emotional reply comes. Or I could say we could also say that when this mental movie is on, but we are not aware that this is nothing else but the phenomenon of thought occurring, ergo we take them as facts, as reality, then it's natural that the body reacts with an emotional response. Since it's believed to be true and real, of course that there is an emotional response, especially if I'm watching a scary movie.
Yeah.
So we can give explanations from many different angles, but these are all just explanations. Of course, we can never really know, because any explanation can only even happen as another mind movie, as another story. But yes, these explanations can be useful to help to understand how all this happens. And about the believer, that's a really good one. If you really look, is there anyone doing the believing? Or believing is just also happens on its own? Because it's sometimes easy to see, relatively easy to see, that there is this mind movie going on, but still it looks like as if there was somebody here, the entity, who is watching or observing the whole thing, and then sometimes believes the story, and sometimes wakes up from it and sees that, oh, this is not real. But is there really? So this is just another subtle way of identifying with something, in this case, as an observer.
I see.
And of course, we can say that awareness or consciousness is, it's not the best word, watching, because it doesn't do anything, but that is which is aware all of it. But the problem comes that for this separate self idea is so good, this me is so sticky, that it even wants to identify, then, oh, then I'm the awareness, then I'm that which is watching, and then immediately personalize this unpersonal awareing, knowing, whatever it is. So yes, it can be seen that there is something that which is aware, but as soon as we name it, as soon as I try to pin it down, there is the risk of identifying and saying that this is what I am. And yes, we can say that this is what I am, but it's one thing to see that there is something, that I exist. Yes, I exist. And if I'm something, that which is aware, but this is a very tricky realm, because most of my clients come to believing that I am consciousness and awareness, and not on the experiential level, but as an intellectual understanding, as a learned idea, as a new identity. And how could I be this separate awareness walking around in this head, in this body, and not the rest of everything else? There is still separation. There is me here, somehow this awareness consciousness linked to this body, and there's your awareness, and I'm watching the world outside.
Yes.
So this is just still, this is a step into the right direction, yes, but it's still beliefs about separation, and about some kind of entity, and separate entities walking around having their own perspectives and experiences.
It's you mentioned it's the mind subtle game. It's the trick of the mind. Would you also say that the mind trick will end on its own? Or is there a way to like catch oh, it's this is tricking me, or this is a mind trick. This is playing games with me, right? I don't know if
So first, the concept of mind, that's another thing that worthwhile to look at, because it's another term that we can freely use in conversation. But is there an actual mind? Is there a mind as an entity who is tricking me, fooling me, creating all sorts of movies to me. Because if I really look, I can discover that there is no mind. There is only the current thought, the current mental image, all there is. If I try to trace back where those images come from, I wouldn't find a place called mind where everything is stored. There is no such place. This is just another imagination of the current thought, which presents this idea. So there is no mind tricking me, and there is no me here receiving this seeming trick on behalf of a mind. So when a thought comes that, oh, I've just woken up from this nightmare, and what can I do? Step further back and just notice that even saying that I've woken up from this nightmare is just another story. That is still in the movie, that is still part of the story, that I've just woken up from it, that is just another line in the movie. Yes, waking up can happen, but is there someone stepping aside and waking up from it? Or all of this just appears as if there were someone waking up. And even that can be observed by nothing that could be separate from the whole thing that is being observed. So is there someone separate from the movie watching it? And yes, there is something aware of it, but that which is aware is not something other than the movie, or not something other than life itself, or whatever is happening right now. There is no gap between experience and that which is aware. Not just there is no gap, they are totally linked, and not just linked, they are so infused that there is no one and the other stick together.
Oh, yes.
And this is the mystery part, which is extremely difficult to put into words. And for seekers, it's often a problem that they hear this kind of stories. And of course, we try to communicate using language, which is dualistic. So I can describe it only using dualistic words. And it's so easy to believe that then this is how it is. These words I'm saying, or someone else is saying, these are the facts. No, these are just simple pointers. We are trying a not so good method or tool, language. That's the best we have to describe something which is totally outside of language.
Yes.
Language can never ever touch this.
Yes. and some people would say words are dualistic, but you made a good point where words can also be used to point to as a pointer, as a guidance to help to help the seeker. Yeah. Maybe my question.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, just one thing. So yes, for the inquiry, I find it very, very useful to use the mind, thought, in a way to formulate a good question and then look.
Yes.
So the question is there only just to move attention to the certain direction where you have to look. But then you ignore the pointer and you just see what you found. And then you formulate words to describe what you've seen.
Yes. In yeah, I experienced that from you firsthand. If I look back at my thread in Liberation Unleashed, it's really long because there are days I still I use the mind, I intellectualize, I conceptualize reality. But maybe in your experience of guiding people, what is the most difficult for for seekers, maybe, or maybe the most the most difficult to hurdle to overcome in this in this kind of seek in the seek. I would I think I know for myself, but maybe in your experience as the guide, you get this
Yeah.
frequently asked question, or the most difficult among all the amongst the ones you have guided.
What you've mentioned, intellectualizing, is definitely, it's like trying to use the same tool, thoughts, to undo the thing that the thought itself created. So the whole illusion is created by thoughts. It's not possible to undo with the same tool that's already creating the whole thing. So this is one of the things, and as we talked before, these mental movies, so it's so well functioning that it seems to be so real that we don't even see them. So if I cannot see it as that it's a thought, that I cannot see it, so I cannot be conscious that I'm just thinking about this whole thing and I'm not actually investigating my own experience. So that is definitely a difficulty for quite many people, to how to shift their focus from focusing on thoughts to focusing on experience itself. Once there's someone realizes how to do that shift, then everything is on the right track. So that is one thing, to make that shift. And difficulties. Many people come with all sorts of expectations. Lots of information easily available on the internet, and people hear other stories and they create expectations on behalf of those stories. The problem is that it's different for everyone. And if I set up my mind with an idea that how this whole thing, this awakening should be like, feel like, then I'm not looking at my here and now experience, because I have this mental idea, and whatever is happening in my inquiry, I'm continuously comparing what I'm seeing with this idea, and I make the conclusion, oh, this is not it. This cannot be. This doesn't match my idea. And we don't even recognize that maybe the problem is with the idea and the comparison. So we don't have to do anything really with these expectations. We just have to see them because they are there. It's out of my control. But just to notice when I do this comparison, when I'm moving to this mind movie into the future with this imagined scenario, how it would feel, and I left what is here. Awakening can only ever happen here now. It's never in an imagined future. It's never in the mental realm. Actually, if awakening is stepping outside, so to speak, from this mental realm, and noticing what else is here, what is actually here.
Yes, you made a good point, because I experienced that myself. Like, the idea, it's a trap. I listened to a lot, a thousand of, or a lot of how the awakening story unfolded, and then the mind created this this mental picture. That's why I took plant medicine. That's why I did ayahuasca, because, or that's why I attended this meditation. I did this modality because the mind is convincing itself. I don't, the mind. There's a thought that if you do this, this will happen, and then you miss the here and now, the
Yeah.
the space where it's happening already.
Yes, and we are pursuing an imagination.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that this is definitely what awakening is. But what if it's not? What if I cannot know, as long as I'm looking it through the lens of this separate entity? This entity doesn't want anything else but happiness. I just want to feel good, so it will striving for anything that I think that could make me feel good. But what if this is not that? What if it's something that it's unimaginable from the perspective of this separate self? So can I have an open mind that maybe that how I imagine it to be, it's not how it is actually.
Yes.
Those who cannot do that for any reasons, then for them it could be a very difficult path. And for those who are intellectually made up their minds that what it's like. One of them is having no thoughts whatsoever anymore. Or if I have thoughts, definitely the thought of I is just would never ever appear. Or I would have a continuous experience of being an observer or an awareness. So these ideas come from all sorts of teachers, and maybe this is not how it is. But if I have a strong idea, especially if it means mixed with an intellectual conviction that this is how it is, then it could be difficult.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's also the accumulated knowledge or experience, I guess, from my experience also, because listening to people, like even the mystical experience, did you experience clients with that? Like, I saw this, I experienced this, seeing reality apart from the physical. Like, let's say I saw some angels, or I saw some I want astral projection, and then I'm guilty of that in the past. Like, I took it as the absolute reality because it's so special, it's so magical, and it's so hard to receive the simple message of this. I know. Did you also experience clients like that?
Yeah, of course, yes. Uh, and yes, because this me who or what is feels that I'm lacking, then it's me wants to be special, because if I'm special, then I might can get everything that I'm lacking in my life. I can get others love, attention, care, I can feel good, whatever. So if I have a mystical experience, that feels good. So this is still on behalf of the self. And this separate me doesn't want an ordinary life. It doesn't want to be not special, totally ordinary. And it's very useful to discover that these fantasies are on behalf of this self. Just because I have a spiritual ego, it is still an ego. Or if someone meditated 20, 30 years and they could get into all sorts of states during meditation, all sorts of jhanas, they totally can misperceive that those very pleasant states like in jhanas, or the lack of thoughts, that is that. It is not. Because there's a huge gap. So someone sits down to meditate, gets into all sorts of states, feels amazing. There is no separate self showing up whatsoever. There are no thoughts, nothing. And then time is over, they stand up, go to work, and they get stressed out. So what's the point? There's a huge gap between sitting down to meditate and ordinary life. That is not awakening. Awakening is what is here right now in my ordinary life. That is just a compartmentalized experience for this self who wants to be special and want to have beautiful experiences. And yet in my everyday life, I still feel like that I am this person who can be hurt, who can be attacked, and you can think badly of me. And I'm constantly worried what others might think of me.
It oh yes. I I I remember being depressed because when the reality, when a glimpse of you're not the doer, that life has you, like life is always happening, not you're not the one in control of it, but it's happening the way it has to. I was like, so if life will throw me to jail tomorrow, or if life will hit me with a bus tomorrow, then what can I do? I was so afraid, and I think it can, if and I know it's also a conditioning or a trauma, as a trauma releasing, maybe perhaps from old past conditioning. But did you also had like experience with clients like that where depression hit after, or it's too much for the mind, that it doesn't that anxiety hits, depression hits.
Yes, it definitely can occur, but especially for those who doesn't really see through the illusion fully, but they have significant glimpses. And then that is interpreted through the belief system of a separate self. So people can be very afraid with the notion of believing that I could lose control. So they have a glimpse, they see that there is no control, everything is just happening. And then this functioning of a separate self is turned on almost immediately. And the whole experience is interpreted through that. So then I got so afraid that, oh my God, I can lose control. How am I going to work or do anything or make any decision in my life? And this is still part of the illusion, because no one has ever done any decision in life. That one who is so afraid of this is just another thought that I'm not conscious of. Just another thought that is occurring in this so-called mind movie, and it's fully believed to be real. So control is not something I can lose. I never had control. Or more precisely, there has never been an entity somewhere inside the body having a control in the first place. So it's not a realization that I have no control or I can lose it. It's the realization that the one who is seemingly has control, that one simply is just a fiction and not a real thing.
Yes.
So just as the self cannot die or cease to exist, control also cannot be lost. Because there has never been control, because there has never been a person having control. And yet life still unfolded, and that's one change. Why would it change? Why would it change just because of the recognition of it?
Yes, it's what you told me before, like life continues, because whether or not the self is realized or not, it's still it was life is the way it is. Like that was my very question to you last time, like then I can just do whatever, or I can just be out of control. That was the biggest confusion. And then you told me the same thing what you're saying right now, like, but choices still happen with or without the realization.
Yeah, and the one who is asking, so now I can do anything I want. So who is asking that? Isn't that just the functioning of this separate self again, showing up as a thought, which isn't seen to be a thought occurring only, but believed to be fully as a reality?
Yes.
So the thing is, even when it is seen that there is no separate self, this mechanism still goes on. So the experiences still can be, so to speak, distorted through the lens of this separate self. So that's why I'm saying to my clients that really this is just the first step. And continued looking and investigation is needed for this whole structure of gradually falling away. So just when you are in a desert and you dying of thirst and you say, oh, there's an oasis. And then you are happy, you found water. And then you realize, oh my God, this is just a mirage. It's not real. But just because you discover that this is just a mirage, it doesn't stop appearing. It still continues to show up and you will mistake it for an oasis again and again. And at some point, you won't stop mistake it for an oasis. And on a long run, it could happen that even the mirage disappears. But that doesn't matter at this stage. So when it is seen that it is not real, then there is no rush. There is no seeking going on for the illusion to stop. If there is, then it's not really seen. It's not fully seen.
Yeah, I agree. It's yeah. There's no rush. It's seen for what it is, knowing it's seen, and I like what you said, like continuous investigation, because I remember you keep telling me because I keep I use the past as a reference to my answer in the present situation, and it's becoming an idea, not a refreshed direct experience in the now. Yeah.
Yeah. So this needs to be seen now and now and now, right this moment.
Yes.
Is there awakeness here now? Or the thoughts are fully believed? And what about now? And now? It's just a moment to moment. There is nothing else than this here now. Where else could I go? Where else could I look? When I look to some other place than this, or other time than this, where am I looking? I'm just watching a virtual reality, a mental fabrication. And even that is here now as a phenomenon. It's happening here now. There's nowhere else to go, nowhere else to look. There is no escape, so to speak. There is just this very moment. Everything else is just in the head. There is the actuality and there is fiction. That's all.
And I guess the mind can function for practical purpose, but for expectation or that seeking energy, I guess this is the end of it. Like if or it can happen, but it can be seen as just a thought, an idea of that. Because planning can happen, right? Planning of the future or something like that, but it's like what you said earlier, it's seen in a different eyes. It's seen from a
Yeah.
different perspective.
Yes. And some people mistake the pointer that what is there to seek if it's already seen that there is no self. And when I suggest that you just keep looking, why should I look if it's already seen? The question is, do you see it moment by moment? And continuous looking after, it's not seeking. That's just a way you help to solidify the whole recognition. That's how you, so to speak, embodying it. So even when the self is seen, there are many, many things to look at. And of course, working through all those conditionings. And where you can end up at the beginning and where you can end up on the longer run, it's a very different experience. But quite many people stop there because they don't want to work. And yes, it still sounds, who would want to work if there is no self? The idea of wanting to work more and go through my conditionings, it just comes up and it's played out. It's not that there's no one here, so there's nothing to do. For me, that is just spiritual bypassing. There's no one here, nothing to do, but I still feel as a person, I get triggered, I get angry, I'm stressed out. Why denying? Why denying this illusion of playing itself out and making changes, so to speak?
Oh, yes.
I mean, making changes to its seeming life.
It's bypassing and suppression and denying. It's all together instead of just using the tools or using the direct seeing to
Yeah.
maybe with the conditioning that arises.
Yes, and not wanting to feel whatever arising right now. Oh, I just brush it away. Oh, there's no one here. Okay, there is anger, but oh, there's no one feeling it. There's no one angry. So I don't have to feel it.
Yes. It's what I think my last question is if I if maybe if I'm you're talking to a seeker who's been seeking for many years, who's expecting for something to happen, maybe what would you tell that me if I'm that seeker and I happen to be receiving your message, because that's been the story of my life. I've been like seeking and seeking, and I don't even know what the end goal is until somewhere along the way I found Liberation Unleashed and I found different catalysts, but it's still I feel like the seeker needs to hear this whatever your message is.
First, can you be open to the possibility that you will never ever get this by thinking and by acquiring more intellectual knowledge, watching more YouTube videos, reading more books? It's not something you learn. It's not an intellectual endeavor. It's quite the opposite. So can you be open to that what you've done so far is not the way to go? And if you can, then are you open to do it differently? Are you open to the possibility that it is not somewhere in the future? It's not a mental stuff. You have to stop and look at what is here now. Any discovery can only happen in the here and now experience. Instead of watching another video or reading another book, just stop and look for the one who is seeking. Here now. The seeker should be here now in this very moment. So where is it? What is seeking? What has the need to do that? What is it that is unhappy with this present moment experience? Where is that one? Where? Exactly where? And don't go to thoughts, don't go to theories, speculations. That one that I should be here, take your finger. Where is it? Where is it? I mean physically. So this is a way to start. Of course, I give lots of pointers to my clients covering different topics. But this is one way to look, just to stop. Try to not go into the thinking realm, into that intellectual storage base, that all that information you've ever gathered about that stuff is there. Just stop. Just stop and look what is here now.
Yes.
What is doing all of this?
Yes. Yeah, very simple, yet overlooked when there's a lot of mental baggage here. Maybe if somebody's watching this, how can they connect with you or contact you if they want to work with you on this more deeper, clear seeing of this one?
Yes. I'm doing one-on-one sessions through Skype or Zoom, and I have a website, my first and last name together, viviennovak.com. And I also have a blog, but I rarely write something, but there are some information if someone wants to look at it. It's fadingwailing.com. Maybe I can give you later the information.
Yeah.
About that.
Oh, sure. Yes. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Vivian. It's been a pleasure having you in Nothing Media Conversations. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Have a nice day.